So anything, anybody have that you want to communicate about the last session yesterday?
No.
Everything's
Clear.
everything's flat and clear. Okay, so you're ready for this? You're ready for this section?
Yes.
All right. This is gonna rock. This is gonna rock your world. This section is now actually getting into the stuff. We've laid some foundation, so we're now going to start really getting into some like new material, some really interesting stuff. So, power of a context to use you, and even deeper cut. To master the contextual framework, that is the context that gives you the being of a leader and the actions of the effective exercise of leadership as your natural self-expression, you must first discover for yourself that a context has the power to shape the way a situation occurs for you, and that your way of being and acting are naturally correlated to that way in which that situation occurs for you. Remember the Good Samaritan parables and all that. We will now explore the statement more fully, beginning with what is meant by way of being. What is meant by way of being? A person's way of being is what is going on with them internally. It is made up of some combination of that person's 1, mental state, their attitude or state of mind, 2, emotional state, their feelings or emotions, 3, bodily state, their body sensations, 4, thoughts and thought processes, and that includes memories that might be present. In other words, a person's way of being is what is going on with them internally in a given moment or in a given situation. 1. In any moment or in any situation, you may not be noticing, paying attention to your attitude or mental state, or to your feelings or emotions, or to your body sensations, or to your thoughts. 2. However, if you do take the time to notice, pay attention to, what is going on with you internally, you will see that in each moment and in each situation, you do in fact have some combination of an attitude or mental state and feelings or emotions. The combination of mental and emotional state we sometimes call the mood. You guys are really fascinated with moods. You talk about how's your mood a lot. We almost never say that. And body sensations and thoughts. One of these aspects of what is going on with you internally may be more present for you than the other. Nevertheless, they are all there. It is important to remember that your way of being is what is going on with you internally. Your way of being does not include what is going on for you outside of you. That is, your way of being is not what is going on for you out there in the world. It is also important to remember that your way of being is what is going on with you internally, moment to moment, or situation to situation. While you may have a typical way of being, the fact is that your way of being, your mental and emotional state, your bodily state, and your thoughts changes from moment to moment or situation to situation. You are not who you know yourself to be. And what we might call your typical way of being, that is, who you take yourself to be or who you know yourself to be, that is just a way of being. Well, we all think that we are a certain way. That way of being is just the way of being that we have resigned ourselves to. That is, we think that we are like this or like that, but the way we are is nothing more than a way of being. In summary, you are not who you know yourself to be. That is, you are not who you think you are. Who you know yourself to be, who you think you are, is nothing more than a way of being. You have a choice about who you are. One critical point about being a leader in life is getting yourself clear that who you know yourself to be is not who you are. Who you know yourself to be is simply one way of being that is available to you, and you're not stuck with that way of being. In this course, you will have the opportunity to discover the source of the freedom to be so that you have a choice about who you choose to be. Action or acting. Anything about that last part?
No.
That's pretty clear, right? What is meant by actions or acting? A person's actions, or the way a person is acting, is meant in its everyday meaning. That is, actions, or way of acting, means the way a person is behaving or acting, or what they are doing. We could say that the way a person is acting includes speaking, is the way they are dealing with life, the world, others, or themselves. In fact, your only way of impacting the world, others, or yourself is by acting. Remember that acting includes speaking, even speaking to yourself, what we call thinking. And speaking also includes what is said by your actions. As in the saying, actions speak louder than words. You've heard that expression before? Yeah. Okay, so here's a break. We've just covered about 2 hours worth of material. So find 10 examples of linguistic abstractions. Okay. Give me a linguistic abstraction. You guys, you said a few yesterday you knew what abstraction was, so give me a linguistic abstraction.
Something that we can touch, but still it's concept.
Okay, give me one of those.
Friendship.
Friendship is an abstraction.
Well, just
Yeah? What else?
Lazy.
Huh?
Lazy.
Lazy is an abstraction. What else?
Lazy is a story.
Love is an abstraction.
responsibility.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
What else?
Simplicity.
What?
Simplicity.
Simplicity. Say it again.
Simplicity.
Simplicity. That's abstract.
And what about
Leadership.
What?
leadership? Yes.
Leadership.
What you said.
It is an abstraction.
Yep.
Exactly.
You can't touch it.
Anything else?
Our way of
Promise.
being. Or
Hi.
What about promise?
A promise?
No, it's
It's
an act.
abstract. That's actually a thing, isn't it?
It's an act.
Or no.
It's an act. It's. I don't know. I don't know. Anything else? So anything that's not. Yeah.
Isn't it also feelings, relationships, maybe?
Relationships are abstract. Yeah, there's no such thing. You can't find a relationship anywhere.
Freedom.
Freedom is an abstraction. Citizen is an abstraction.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You did your homework. Okay. Put simply, the question is, if I see or I'm impacted by leader or leadership, what is it that I will see, or what is it that will impact me? What is leadership as lived? Anybody want to take a stab at that? What?
We need to put a boy between them.
Oh,
We'll
yeah.
fix it. It's okay.
I don't know what to do.
We'll change our seat when it will be appropriate.
All right, so we'll wait for somebody else to come.
No?
So it's
No, you
We
just
just need to
change your place.
yeah.
Marco, will you sit between them so the integrity
We
is...
just can change our seats with
No,
left
no,
over.
it's-
I and left.
Marco, I request that you sit between them.
okay.
You accept my request, thank you.
We could do it in a simple way. Change our seats.
I can see Marco better this way, if you need a reason. All right, so what is it that impacts you? What is it that you will see? What is leadership as lived?
Maybe action.
Yeah, what action?
Right. On the court, action.
Huh?
Yeah, on the court.
Yeah, that's what the question is. That's the phenomenon. What do you see? What are you impacted by leader or leadership? What will impact me? What is leadership as lived?
Participating.
Yes, to be on the court.
All right.
On
Now
the
you
Maybe some
might
actions
write that
change
down.
something.
Huh?
Maybe actions that change something. Not just
Actions that are going to change something. You're actually very close to the definition. Change something that isn't going to happen anyway. But right, that this is an inquiry, has more powers in inquiry. than just to get the answer and to move on.
Okay.
Okay? All right, there we go. Now we're in the afternoon. Okay, so we did the homework. What is your relationship between your way of being and the way you act? On the next few slides, we will discuss the way in which your way of being and your way of acting are related to each other. Way of being and acting. Your actions from moment to moment are consistent with your way of being in those moments. Said more fully, your actions are consistent with, are appropriate to, some combination of your attitude or state of mind and your feelings or emotions, what we might call your mood, plus your body sensations and your thoughts. You could also say it's in a dance with. That is, your actions are consistent with, appropriate to, in a dance with, what's going on with you internally. For example, when you are feeling confident, you are also likely to act confidently. And when you're feeling unsecure, you are likely to act with hesitation. Neuroscience. Your way of being does not cause your actions. While we think our actions are caused by our way of being, our attitude, our state of mind, or our emotions, or the way we feel, or our body sensations, or our thoughts, what we decide to do, neuroscience research has shown that our way of being does not cause our actions. Neuroscience research has shown that the neural patterns in our brain that give rise to our way of being are always networked together with the neural patterns in our brain that give rise to our actions. Do you understand neural patterns?
Yes.
Anybody not? That is, our way of being and our way of acting arise together as one thing. A fallacy. Your way of being causes your actions. The belief that our attitude or state of mind influence or cause the way we act is a fallacy. The belief that our feelings or emotions influence or cause the way we act is also a fallacy. The belief that our body sensations influence or cause the way we act is another fallacy. And finally, the belief that our decisions influence the way we act is a fallacy. As we will soon discuss, in experiment after experiment, neuroscience research has shown that the specific neural pattern in our brain that will give rise to a particular action is formed milliseconds before we make the conscious decision to act in that way. Pretty strange, huh? We think that we act because we decided to act that way. That is, we think we decide, make up our minds, to act in a particular way, and that causes us to act in that way. Any questions?
Explaining what does it mean fallacy?
Fallacy. Did you explain it?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Nice one. Yes.
Everybody know what fallacy is? No, that's what it is. Okay. So, that we think we decide, make up our minds to act in a particular way, and that causes us to act in that way. Neuroscience research makes it clear that this is simply not true. Every neural pattern of action stored in and activated by your brain is already networked together with a stored neural pattern of a way of being. Mental state, emotional state, body state, and thoughts. In other words, your way of being and your way of acting arise together as though one thing.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can it be that our actions influence the way of our being? Our thoughts and influence the way of how our being. Can it be like that or no?
We're saying that arises together
Yes,
as though one thing.
I heard.
Alright, stay tuned, there's more.
Okay.
Alright. The front of your hand and the back of your hand come together as one thing. Your way of being and your way of acting are like the front of your hand and the back of your hand. While you can distinguish the front of your hand from the back of your hand, you cannot separate the front of your hand from the back of your hand. The front of your hand and the back of your hand come together in one package. Likewise, your way of being and acting, while you can distinguish your way of being from your actions, it is as though a person's way of being and acting are one thing. They come together as one package. That is, they arise together. Summary of way of being and acting. Your actions from moment to moment are consistent with, appropriate to, your way of being in those moments. Your way of being, your attitude or state of mind and your emotions, or the way you feel and your body sensations and your thoughts, including what you decide to do, does not cause your actions. Rather, your way of being and acting are one thing. They come together as one package. That is, they arise together. Your internal state. What's going on with you internally does not cause your actions. Now, what you want to do is on the court, check that out on the court. Don't take it for that it is said and therefore it's so, but to know it on the court is a different way of knowing. The illusion that deciding to act causes one to act. It seems obvious that before you act voluntarily, you choose to take that action. It seems obvious, right? Voluntary action is something you decide or choose to do, an intentional action controlled by one's mind or will. Voluntary is contrasted with involuntary. Your heart beats involuntarily, you breathe involuntarily. Those are involuntary things. Consequently, you believe, actually take for granted, that when acting voluntarily, the following is what happens. Right? This is what we believe that happens. You decide to act, then you act. The following is a fuller explanation consistent with this belief about the cause of your voluntary actions. 1. You decide to raise your hand. Your brain communicates that intention to the neurons in your brain responsible for planning and executing hand movements. And 3. Those neurons relay the appropriate commands to the motor neurons that contract the arm muscles. Of course, we may have, for example, a conscious mental state or emotional state, or a conscious thought process that impacts our decision, choice, to act or not to act. So to describe the process of voluntary action more fully, we would say it is our conscious internal state, what is going on with us internally, that causes us to act. The meaning of internal state, that's a term of art specific to this particular conversation. What we mean by internal state is, for a human being, what is going on internally at a conscious level. As we said, one's internal state includes one's state of mind or mental state, one's feelings or emotions, the combination of 1 and 2 could be called one's mood, and one's thoughts and thought processes. All the foregoing often spoken about as happening in my mind. As we said, it appears to us that our internal state, what is going on with us internally, causes the way we act. It seems that way because when we are in a situation that calls for action on our part, there is a conscious level of the thought to act, the decision or choice to act in a particular way, and then we act in that way. Formally, this belief is called mental causation. The everyday, commonly understood meaning of mental causation. The definition of mental causation is the long-standing, intuitively held idea that it is what is in our mind, our mental state, emotional state, bodily state, and our thoughts and thought processes that causes our actions. Or, as we would say it using our term of art, mental causation is the intuitively held idea that it is what is in our conscious internal state, what is going on with us internally, that causes our actions. The commonly understood meaning of mind. Mind equals, most agree that the minds are constituted by conscious experience and intelligent thought. Common attributes of mind include perception, reason, imagination, memory, emotion, attention, and a capacity for communication. A rich set of unconscious processes are also included in many modern characterizations of mind. In the Western tradition, the complex of facilities involved in perceiving, remembering, considering, evaluating, and deciding, that's an incomplete sentence. Mind is in some sense reflected in such occurrences as sensations, perceptions, emotions, memory, desires, various types of reasoning, motives, choices, traits of personality, and the unconsciousness. That's a commonly understood meaning of mind. The illusion that deciding to act causes one to act, the evidence for believing in mental causation, the idea that it is what is in our mind, what is going on with us internally that causes our action, is as compelling as the evidence that the sun moves across the sky. That is to say, the appearance that deciding or choosing to act is what causes me to act is as compelling as the appearance that the sun moves across the sky. The appearance that the sun rises, moves up from behind the horizon in the morning, and sets, moves down below the horizon in the evening, and moves across the sky during the day, from where it rose to where it sets. While it appears to us that it is the sun that moves rather than the earth that moves, based on scientific evidence, we know better. So we no longer believe that the earth is still and the sun moves. Rather, we live and understand life based on the sun is still and the earth is revolving around its axis. That gives us the illusion that the sun moves. The appearance that deciding or willing comes before acting leaves us believing that our internal state, our mood, feelings, thoughts, etc., causes our way of acting. That belief is so strong, it makes it difficult for most people to consider anything contrary to that belief, even strong experimental evidence. So now we're going to give you strong experimental evidence. When somebody persuades me I am wrong, I change my mind, what do you do? I think I said that. The only cause of action and consciousness. As you will know, it is a widely accepted fact that both your conscious experience, for example, deciding to act, and the physical actions you actually take are both generated by activated patterns of neurons in your brain and nothing else. It is important that you do not confuse what your brain generates with what shows up in your consciousness, mind. It is also important not to conflate what is happening in your brain, just neurons firing, with what is happening in your consciousness. In short, your brain is the sole cause of both your consciousness, what you are aware of, and your actions. The everyday commonly understood meaning of human brain. Human brain equals essentially a collection of specialized cells, neurons, that function in activated patterns which are networked together that cause a person's perceptions, actions, and internal state, plus causing a good deal of other effects about which we are not conscious. No, the brain is not the mind. We cannot feel what is happening in our brain. In the brain, there's no sensory faculty as such. Consequently, we have no conscious awareness of what is going on in our brain. That about which we are aware, that about which we are conscious, is often referred to as what is in our mind. When we act what actually happens in our brain. What is going on in our brain that generates our conscious thought to act and generates our physical action actually happens in a very different way than the way it appears to us at a conscious level. When we are in a situation that calls for action, our brain activates as a readiness potential the pattern of neurons that will actually generate the action we will wind up taking. The activation, formulation, of the readiness potential that will wind up causing the action we take happens below our level of consciousness, below our awareness. And our brain generates that neuronal action pattern as a readiness potential at least a half a second before activating the pattern of neurons that generates our conscious decision internal state to act that way. In other words, before you consciously decide to act, your brain has already determined the action you will take by activating as a readiness potential the pattern of neurons that will generate the action you will end up taking. The neuroscience research that reveals what actually happens in our brain when we act. In an article in Scientific American, Caltech professor Christoph Koch talks about the extensive experiments which established the fact that your voluntary actions are already set in your brain before you consciously decide to take an action. The results told an unambiguous story, which was bolstered by later experiments. The beginning of the readiness potential precedes the conscious decision to move by at least half a second and often much longer. The brain acts before the mind decides. This discovery was a complete reversal of the deeply held intuition of mental causation. Are you with us, Mr. Root? Yeah? Shall we wait till you finish texting?
No, I'm listening.
Oh, okay. All right. Reporting on a contemporary series of experiments in the same manner by Max Planck Institute neuroscientist John Dylan Hayes, Professor Patrick Haggard states, the research subject's conscious decision to push the button was made about a second before the actual act. But the team discovered that a pattern of brain activity seemed to predict that decision by as many as 7 seconds. Long before the subjects were even aware of making a choice, it seems their brains had already decided. We feel we choose, but we don't. The illusion that deciding to act causes one to act. Because our brain fires the pattern of neurons that generates our conscious awareness of a decision to act before it actually fires, the activated pattern of neurons already existing below our level of consciousness, below our awareness, as a readiness potential that will actually generate our action, it looks to us like the decision has come before the action. This leaves us with the illusion that we act because we decide to act. Crazy, huh? On this slide, in the next 2 slides, we will quote neuroscientist Sam Harris from his book Free Will, in which he makes clear for the general public the research on the actual relation between the conscious decisions, our thoughts, and one's actions. The popular conception of free will seems to rest on 2 assumptions. One, that each of us could have behaved differently than we did in the past. And 2, that we are the conscious source of most of our thoughts and actions in the present. Both these assumptions are false. But the deeper truth is that free will doesn't even correspond to any subjective fact about us, and introspection soon proves as hostile to the idea as the laws of physics are. Seeming acts of volition merely arise spontaneously. Whether caused, uncaused, or probabilistically inclined, it makes no difference and cannot be traced to a point of origin in our conscious mind. A moment or 2 of serious self-scrutiny, and you might observe that you no more decide the next thought than you think than the next thought I write. The intention to do one thing and not another does not originate in consciousness. Rather, it appears in consciousness. Some moments before you are aware of what you will do next, a time in which you subjectively appear to have complete freedom to behave however you please, your brain has already determined what you will do. You then become conscious of this decision and believe that you are in the process of making it. Quoting Dr. Susan Blackmore, author of several books on consciousness. You're probably wondering what this has to do with leadership, don't you? Conscious experience takes some time to build up and is much too slow to be responsible from making things happen. In other words, the activation of neurons needs to propagate through many regions of the brain before any conscious awareness results. According to neuroscientists Drs. Seong-Soon, Brass, Hines, and Haynes, in their 2008 paper, Unconscious Determinants of Free Decisions in the Human Brain, in Nature Neuroscience, the preparatory time period reveals that this prior activity, the readiness potential, is not an unspecific preparation of a response. Instead, it, the readiness potential, specifically encodes how a subject is going to decide. The second critical point for being a leader in life, that your actions are not caused by your way of being, is the second critical point required to be a leader in life. You must get clear yourself about this fact. Get yourself clear that your way of being and acting are one thing. They come together as one package, that is, they arise together. When you're clear about this, the question becomes, given that your way of being and acting arise together as though one thing, what is the source of your way of being and acting? Before answering this question, we need to get clear about three more terms we will use in the answer. Do you understand the question?
Yes.
So if your being and acting rise together as though one thing, what is the source of your way of being and acting? How do you get access to your way of being and acting? What is the access to that? Well, we need to get clear about three more terms. Yeah. Where are we? What you are dealing with. What is meant by what you are dealing with? What you are dealing with includes the circumstances on which you are acting, the circumstances in which you are acting on whatever you are acting on, the way in which you occur for yourself in acting on whatever you are acting on in those circumstances in which you are acting.
What is the difference between the first and second?
What is the difference between what?
The first and second.
The circumstances on which and in which.
Not
So you're working on something, we're working on the leadership course, and we're in Ukraine, we're in this building, we're in a conversation. But we're the circumstances on which we are acting, and then in which we are acting. Got it? Okay. We're gonna say more about this, as you can imagine. Occur. What is meant by occur? In short, what we mean by occur is the way in which you perceive what you are dealing with. More fully, what we mean by occur is the way in which the circumstances you're dealing with are in the presence of, registers in some way for you. That is, exists in some manner for you. Be clear that what is meant by occur is not what is going on with you internally, your way of being. Rather, what occurs for you is what is going on out in life, the world, others, and the way you show up for yourself being in the world. When we speak,
Українською відповідно to occur. Якісь конкретні щоб я все написав.
Розпитати спочатку, щоб я знав англійську.
I just want to have a Ukrainian word to occur to make this
you
clear.
got it now?
Ти будеш
Seeming is another word. How something seems
Uh-huh.
is how something occurs.
Okay, I understood.
All right, good.
Thank you.
When we speak about the way in which the circumstances you are dealing with occur for you, we mean the way in which each of the following registers or shows up for you, either consciously or unconsciously. One, the circumstances you're dealing with, the circumstances in which you are dealing with whatever you are dealing with, your environment or surroundings, the way in which you occur for yourself in dealing with whatever you are dealing with in that environment. To repeat, what is meant by the way in which what you are dealing with occurs for you includes not only the circumstances you're dealing with, but it also includes the circumstances in which you are dealing with whatever you are dealing with, your environment or surroundings, and also includes the way in which you occur for yourself in dealing with whatever you're dealing with in that environment. This is critical. This is really critical for impacting anything. Correlated. What is meant by correlated? At the most basic level, correlated means connected in some way. That is, if one thing is correlated with another thing, these two things are connected in some way. However, what we mean by correlated is a very specific kind of connection. This is a term of art. What is not meant by correlated? First, if you've studied statistics, please note that by correlated we do not mean a mere statistical correlation. Second, the kind of correlation connection that we will be speaking about is not one of cause and effect. In short, the connection between the two things we will be speaking about that are correlated is something other than cause and effect. What is meant by correlated? By correlated, we mean a specific kind of connection between two things. It is like two things that are in a dance with each other. Or said more rigorously, two things that are interrelated by being naturally, necessarily, closely connected. In summary, what is meant by correlated, as we will be using the term, is two things that are interrelated by being naturally, necessarily, closely connected, or in everyday language, two things that are always a match for each other, or more poetically, two things that are in a dance with each other. Yes?
Question means like something that we associate one with another, or like, I know, being hungry and eating, or what? Okay. What means correlated on an example?
Okay. Let's I think that the answer to your question is set up in the thing. You notice how we ask questions and then the next few slides gets it all sorted out?
Mm-hmm.
See if these don't sort it out. Okay. So we are now ready to answer the question. Given that your way of being and acting arise together as though one being, what is the source of your way of being and acting? The beginning of the source of being a leader in life. The answer to the question, what is the source of my way of being and acting in life, is the beginning of being a leader in life. That you get yourself clear about the answer to this question is absolutely critical to your being a leader in life. And to get clear about the answer, you yourself must be asking the question, not simply listening to the question or reading the question to yourself. Do you really want to know the answer to the question, when I'm being a leader, what is the source of my way of being and acting? Good girl. Can you see that if you have access to the source of your way of being and acting, that allows you to create ways of being and acting that are effective and at the same time nurturing for you.
What means nurture?